This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Sudan's military chief meets Egypt's Sisi on his first trip since Bashir ouster. At least 25 Nigerian soldiers are killed in an ambush. And Ebola health workers threaten a strike if security is not improved in the DR Congo. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. In business news, Denmark donates $9 million to facilitate trade between South Sudan and Uganda. And in your sport, South Africa names a team to the 2019 Netball World Cup in Liverpool. We begin the hour in North Africa, where the head of Sudan's ruling military council, Abdel Fattah el-Burhan, has met Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on Saturday. This is the Sudanese military chief's first trip abroad since the army overthrew former President Omar al-Bashir following months of protests. Egypt's el-Sisi is himself a former military chief who got the top job following the ouster of his predecessor Mohamed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood. The meeting will be closely monitored by Sudanese opposition groups who have warned Egypt not to interfere in their affairs. Let's get to the latest from Egypt now, where CGTN's Adel Mahroui is on standby for us with the details. Adel, the head of Sudan's ruling military council has visited Egypt and held discussions with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi yesterday. Do we know what was discussed in the meeting?
Well, yes. First of all, they have been together discussing the situation in Sudan. To Egypt, the instability of Sudan is considered part of the national security extension of Egypt through the south. Egypt has been suffering with instabilities on its western border with Libya, on its northeastern border with Gaza, and now with Sudan. Egypt has been quite moving with firm steps to support the Sudanese transition, the will of the aspirations and of the people. But at the same time, Egypt has shown extreme confidence in the military institution of Sudan. As soon as Abdel Fattah el-Burhan led the transitional council, the military transitional council, following the ousting of President al-Bashir, Cairo was among the first capitals to support the military institution and shows confidence that it can lead the country into political transition, into a civilian rule. So the situation in Sudan was the prime discussions that led between President el-Sisi and Marshal Fattah el-Burhan. They have discussed how can Cairo and Gulf countries support the Sudanese capital Khartoum and the transition it goes through. Sudan needs immediate economic support because what has sparked these uprising or movements of protesters was the deterioration in the economic situation. While he was in Cairo, his deputy Hamidati in Saudi Arabia, where Saudi Arabia has been giving a fund of about $250 million to Khartoum. So there is a move between Egypt, Saudi Arabia and UAE, all to support the military council, hoping that Sudan can go through this transition in the quickest possible time.
Adel, you have mentioned that Cairo was among the first to support Sudan's transitional council, and this was his first trip, though, abroad since the army overthrew former President Omar al-Bashir last month. Many will be asking, though, why Egypt as the first trip?
Well, Egypt believes that a military institution is the only way to maintain the stability and the unity of the Sudanese country, not just in Sudan, even in Libya. Egypt has been taking a similar approach, and Sudan. Egypt believes that unified armed forces is the only capable solution to maintain the unity of the land of any country, and therefore they have given that support to the military council. There were good support and good relations with President Omar al-Bashir. They were a bit tensed, but in recent months leading into even the uprising, President Sisi has been supporting Omar al-Bashir in terms of as a key to the stability in Libya, in Sudan, sorry. So the stability of Sudan is what Egypt seeks, and the country is quite pragmatic about how this can achieve. And it believes that the military council is the best way for Sudan to lead that transition. Despite that, there seem to be unrest going on in the discussions between the military council and the civilian powers, who are calling for a strike on Tuesday and Wednesday in objection to what they believe is stalling the process of transition.
On that strike that you've mentioned that has been called for the coming week, the protest groups have called for a strike starting Tuesday. What is the latest on that?
Well, the calls are growing, actually, on that call. There have been talks going on in Saudi Arabia between the military council and representatives of the civilian powers in Sudan. And following that, these meetings actually is when the calls have begun. They believe that the Sudanese military council is stalling, is not fulfilling their demands, basically, to immediately hand over the leadership to a civilian government. That's why the strike is ongoing. It's not just a protest anymore. It's a call for strike in all governmental sectors, a sort of a political move that aims to freeze the daily lives and the governmental institution within the Sudanese country. And it seems that these conflicts, and this is what has been actually expected, that there will be political conflicts between the civilian powers and the military leadership. The military leadership in Sudan aims for stability and unity of the country. It also aims to maintain Sudan's common interest, which has been mainly and deeply founded by President Omar al-Bashir and his military institution as well. And it's this part that has been quite what many from the civilian political stream have been quite objecting to. They want to have full control and over the transition and over the country until elections is reached, while the military council wants to take each step calmly and steadily, maintaining that it is not completely marginalized of that political process.
Adil Mahroui for us there in Cairo with that update. Thank you. The African Union has marked Africa Day by celebrating the efforts of citizens in its peacekeeping missions. It has unveiled a memorial wall with names of many who perished in the line of duty as they protected peace and security on African Union missions. Coletta Wanjohi reports now from Addis Ababa.
Over 1,000 names inscribed on a wall at the African Union Commission headquarters. They belong to African men and women who died while on duty.
I salute the gallantry of our fallen heroes and heroines. They exhibited great acts of bravery and paid the ultimate price through their feats of ingenuity, bravery, and strength. We will eternally remember them.
The departed citizens were involved in at least 15 missions across the continent, in countries that include Ethiopia and Eritrea, Comoros, Central African Republic, and Sudan. There is no certain figure for how many people have actually died in the missions.
This is a solemn reminder that the freedoms that we are enjoying today should not be taken for granted. The Holy Book tells us that greater love hath no man than a man lay his life for his friends.
The unveiling comes days before the United Nations honors members of its peacekeeping missions who lost their lives in 2018. Most of the names are from the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, which was established in 2007 and whose mandate has been extended several times as the African Union supports Somalia to stabilize and form a fully fledged government. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
While Tunisia is one of the founding countries of the African Union, it underlined in its declaration the importance to fulfill the aspirations of the African peoples for prosperity and global development. Tunisia marked Africa Day. Officials and activists expressed their pride to be part of this promising continent. CGTN's Adnan Chauchi has more.
Tunisia has marked Africa Day in an original way. The country's foreign ministry and embassies of African states, as well as associations, organized a breakfasting for African communities.
I'm a Tunisian cook, but I love traditional Sudanese cuisine. Special recipes are prepared on Africa Day, which coincides with the fasting month of Ramadan.
This is the third edition of the celebration of Africa Day. As you can see through the decor, there are many stands representing all African countries and accredited embassies in Tunisia. This is an occasion for us to gather.
The ambassador of Cameroon stressed that Africans are proud of their origins. The Dean of African Diplomats in Tunisia added that a bright future awaits the continent if all Africans work together.
This party gathers all Africans. On this occasion, we remember that we have a common future, which is Africa.
A football tournament was organized on the sidelines of Africa Day. The teams were made of players from different nationalities.
Africa wins on sporting events. It is through sport that we build strong unions. Africa is stronger on this special day. We count on the new African generation.
Tunisia has reaffirmed its commitment to actively contribute to strengthening relations of solidarity and bilateral cooperation to achieve the African complementarity and to promote peace, security and stability across the continent. According to the High Exports Council, the share of African markets in Tunisia's trade does not exceed 2%. Tunisia's Foreign Minister Khamis Genewi and several African diplomats have agreed on Africa Day to boost inter-African trade. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Islamist insurgents have killed at least 25 soldiers and a number of civilians in an ambush in northeastern Nigeria. Two security sources say Boko Haram militants had surrounded the vehicles of the soldiers. They then opened fire as the Nigerian soldiers were escorting a group of evacuees from a village in Borno State. Boko Haram's insurgency has waged on since 2009. The group has killed more than 30,000 people and displaced millions more. Nigeria's government has led sustained efforts to eradicate the militants, but they continue to suffer heavy losses. Health workers tackling the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo have threatened to go on strike if the government does not do more to protect them from violence. The threat comes 3 days after a health facility in the eastern city of Butembo was attacked by armed militia. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The attack on an Ebola treatment center in the eastern DRC city of Butembo forced health workers to flee. Local authorities there closed some health facilities after the attack. Some health workers are now threatening to strike if the government does not increase their protection. But staff from the World Health Organization are conducting operations. Attacks and death threats against health teams in eastern DRC have forced some of them to quit. The World Health Organization has recorded 131 attacks on healthcare workers since last year. 40 of them were injured and 5 killed in the attacks by armed militia. The Ebola outbreak has killed more than 1,200 people in North Kivu and Ituri provinces since it was first reported in August last year. Insecurity, coupled with the mistrust of some community members, have hampered efforts to contain the deadly disease. The UN recently appointed the deputy chief of its peacekeeping mission in the DRC to coordinate the international Ebola response. David Gressley's appointment is supposed to strengthen the security and political engagement in order to allow health workers to contain the disease. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Let's return to Ethiopia now, and humanitarian agencies are concerned that there are limited resources for the hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians in the southern region who remain displaced because of internal conflict. Following the regional violence, it is estimated that over 500,000 are in dire need of assistance. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reports from Wachu in southern Ethiopia, where thousands are still in camps.
Non-food items arriving at a makeshift distribution center in Wachu in the southern region of Ethiopia. Victims of internal displacement wait patiently to receive blankets and mats.
That mountain marks the boundary between Guji area on the other side and Gedeo, where we are standing now, the two areas affected by the conflict. The residents here tell us when the attackers came from the other side of the mountain, they were forced to flee from their homes towards the urban centers where they are now camped and they feel much safer.
Abebe Biru and his family lived in Guji, where the attackers came from, and they had to flee 11 months ago for fear of their lives.
We sought refuge in a small church here. We were over 260 people. They gave us 20 blankets and mats to share. The little food we are getting from World Vision and the local authorities here is helping us survive.
Together with hundreds of others here, he is yet to be allocated a house to live in. The camps are their home for now. Humanitarian organizations are worried that lack of funding is slowing down their ability to respond.
For World Vision's part, our annual budget this year will be about 150 million. About 74 million of that is going towards emergency response, of which we've already raised about 59 million.
These people say the Gedeo and Guji areas have had boundary issues, but this has never bred such violence as was witnessed last year.
Before the conflict, we lived together and did joint developments as brothers. A lot of things. The Gedeo and Guji are relatives. We have been together in funerals. We have even intermarried. I hope in the future this relationship will come back.
The government of Ethiopia says it is working to ensure security returns to the areas affected by the conflict. Ethiopians overseas have so far contributed over $1 million towards the displaced people. And even Ethiopians at home are trying to help. Abebe is not sure if he will ever cross the mountain to return to his farm. For now, his immediate hope is that he will get a temporary shelter to house his family in this rainy season. Colette Wanjohi, CGTN, in Wachu, southern region of Ethiopia.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. The battle for the besieged capital of Tripoli intensifies. And Addis Ababa Riverside gets a $1 billion facelift.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Perina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's go to Libya now, where the battle for the besieged capital of Tripoli has intensified. Forces loyal to the United Nations-backed Libyan government have carried out a counter-assault against the Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army. The flare-up in the conflict in Libya began early April when Haftar's LNA advanced on Tripoli. The fighting, which has centered around the southern suburbs of the capital, has killed at least 500 people and forced thousands out of their homes. Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, will soon get a makeover. A government-sponsored beautification project aims to transform the city. The project, dubbed Beautifying Sheger, will set up infrastructure along 56 kilometers of riverside space. This would include parks and other recreational facilities for the city's residents. The project will cost Ethiopians just over $1 billion. CGTN's Girum Chala has more.
When works at the project come to an end in about 3 years, Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, will officially join the ranks of extra beautiful cities in Africa and the world. The initiative, Beautifying Sheger, is the brainchild of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed.
The main objective of this project, it might have a catchy title of Beautifying Sheger, but it goes beyond cosmetics. It has a lot of elements. Number one, it has It's related to ensuring that citizens and dwellers of Addis Ababa live a dignified life, live in an environment which is clean, because this is something that's also guaranteed within the constitution for them. So as Addis Ababa is the hotspot of, and a hub for Africa, as well as is becoming an international hub as well, it's important to ensure that the city reflects, its name, Addis Ababa, New Flower as well.
Ethiopia now needs close to $1 billion to execute this project, which covers 56 kilometers of the city's riverside. Going by a fundraising dinner hosted by Prime Minister Abiy, the support is overwhelming. About $43 million was raised in just one night. And of the total 56 kilometers, the Chinese government has pledged to develop 12 kilometers. Governments and UN agencies such as UN Habitat are also supportive of this mega project. Addis residents are simply excited.
I believe this is a wonderful project, especially after it is completed as per the plan. I heard it will have parks that will save young people from wasting their time in harmful places.
We are hopeful that this mega project will change the city to a better place. Addis will be a comfortable city to live in.
It is brilliant. It's because the rovers in Addis Ababa are dangerous for our health. So for us and the beauty of our city, this is a great initiative.
This unkempt and disorganized look of Addis Ababa will soon be history and will be replaced by world-class riverside infrastructure, parks and recreational areas. The Addis Ababa Riverside project will have a huge significance in building the image of not only the city but also the image of the entire country. The branding of Addis Ababa for an increased tourist numbers will have one more but important supporting factor too. Group Data CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The United Nations has warned that at current levels, the Earth could be awash with over 12 billion tons of plastic trash by the middle of the century. According to the world body, up to 5 trillion grocery bags are used each year, and like most plastic garbage, barely any is recycled. One Kenyan entrepreneur keen on going green is turning plastic waste into value. Our reporter Daniel Arapmoy brings us more.
Plastic littering the streets of many African countries can be such a blot on the landscape for countless citizens. But for this Kenyan entrepreneur with a passion for clean and safe environment, it spells opportunity. Oscar Agan has been bothered by the ever-increasing quantity of plastic waste in Nairobi's suburbs for many years.
The reality out there is that our country and residential areas are full of garbage. So that pushed me into an initiative where I recycle whatever garbage that I find.
Agan's determination to solve the challenge of waste management gave birth to a company, Continental Renewable Energy, which now recycles 100 tons of plastic every month.
What we are looking at is a situation where we will be able to house Africans using their garbage. That's the whole concept behind this. House Africans affordably using their garbage.
The company recycles post-consumer plastic into affordable building materials like poles for use in construction, road signage and farming. Here at the factory, collected waste is sorted according to quality before being crushed and washed, melted and molded into different shapes. Other finished products made out of recycled plastic on display include ridge tiles made in different shapes and color, roof tiles, driveway blocks and walkway slabs. According to Agan, 1 kilogram of plastic waste can save 2.5 kilograms of carbon emissions, and for every 10 plastic posts produced, 1 tree is saved. According to the World Bank Urban Development Series report, Africa produces approximately 70 million tons of waste, and this is expected to increase with population growth.
What we should encourage and what we should urge every government around is to encourage recycling, because recycling is a resource and a clean environment is also healthy.
But as the world continues to grapple with the ever-increasing quantities of waste, Agan's recycling plastic model could turn out to be one of Africa's best bet in conserving the environment. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
And in the heart of the Ivorian capital, Abidjan, hides Abobobule, said to be the most beautiful village in Côte d'Ivoire. The village appeals to many due to its clean streets, the quality of its gardens, and its carefully designed architecture. Let's take a look.
Abobobule is nicknamed the City of Grace. When one arrives here, you are immediately amazed by the landscape. Well-maintained streets with blossoming flowers and trees.
We have an environmental team that maintains the green spaces. This team comes every day to maintain our lawns, plants, flowers and public places. During the rainy season, it must be done every day because, as you can see, the grass grows very fast.
The village has objects that belonged to royalty.
The village's resources are from the population because all of us participate in the life of the village. With regard to finances, we have implemented a payment policy for certain deeds relating to our land assets. We also receive donations from government agencies or politicians. All this money goes into the village's bank account, and it is from this account that we buy supplies to build our village.
The village has its own internal security system, a school, health center, hotel and cultural center. But it faces a serious environmental threat.
We have a major challenge. It's the flooding of this part of the village during the rainy season. Indeed, the storm basin designed to contain these waters is completely silted up. This causes flooding during the rainy season. So if there are people of goodwill who can help us, it will be a blessing for the village.
Located in the northeast of Abidjan, Abobobule has existed since the 19th century, combining tradition and modernity. It has been awarded the 2018 African Prize for the promotion of rural development and the integration of peoples. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
To South Sudan now, where soldiers are vacating a school that was previously used as a military barracks. The government and aid agencies are demilitarizing civilian buildings in the Upper Nile region to create a safe environment for returnees. CGTN's Jen Keo reports.
Following the 2018 peace deal, South Sudan is working towards enduring stability. In the northeastern town of Kodok, a school is being returned for civilian use. Opposing forces have been using the school as armed barracks since 2013.
I am happy today because there is rehabilitation and people are returning home. And now the school will reopen for the secondary education. In 1979, I was a student in this school, sat for my exams, and was promoted to Malakal Senior School.
We don't want to do this thing in darkness because we wanted to tell the world that, tell the region that we are for peace and we are evacuating the day schools. Because our presence in the school here, it is giving a lot of excuse even to the donors. If you talk about education, they say, no, the schools are being occupied by soldiers.
Such declarations are significant steps in the country's demilitarization. Civilian spaces such as schools and hospitals are being handed back by the military. Various UN agencies are facilitating the process.
Our job is very simple: to plead with the national authorities, to plead with the military, and work together with them to ensure that the schools are evacuated. They are not being used during the war. The children are not used in the armed forces. They are not raped. They are not abducted.
South Sudan's 5-year civil war has killed hundreds of thousands. Millions have been uprooted from their homes, and many in UN protection sites say they do not yet feel safe returning. Demilitarization is a crucial part of creating conducive environments for the safe, dignified and voluntary return of civilians. Jane Keo, CGTN.
And your business news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. Denmark donates $9 million to facilitate trade between South Sudan and Uganda. And a Ghanaian social entrepreneur repurposes scrap car tires into furniture.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The Danish government has donated $9 million to facilitate trade between South Sudan and Uganda. The money has been handed over to Trademark East Africa, which is building a one-stop border post for the two countries. South Sudan's government says the facility would speed up the process of clearing goods at the border. Here's CGTN's Patrick Oyet.
Immaculate Namala is a Ugandan businesswoman in South Sudan. She says one of her biggest challenges is the lack of a unifying currency. She sells goods in South Sudan currency, then changes it to dollars, and upon reaching Uganda, she has to change the money to Ugandan currency to be able to purchase goods.
Nowadays things are expensive there in Uganda, and here to change dollar is very expensive. So we have that problem every day. Today, if you change at this rate, tomorrow, different.
Immaculate says another challenge is the many checkpoints in South Sudan where traders are asked to pay money. But South Sudan's government says the $9 million donation by the Danish government would help build a one-stop border post and bring down the cost of importing goods into the country.
It will also decrease corruption, which is the most important point there. You know, when things are handled in a very lengthy manner as it used to be, then there can always be loopholes to be exploited by some scrupulous people.
Many goods in South Sudan are imported, and many of those doing business in South Sudan are from neighboring countries. Juba says it plans to encourage more South Sudanese people to become entrepreneurs. Some people here say the one border post would only resolve a small part of the problem of trade in South Sudan. Other issues that need to be tackled include paying taxes at every level of government to many different institutions and insecurity. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
In Ghana, a social entrepreneur has come up with an innovative way of recycling scrap car tires. Imelda Adjei set up her business, Think Emmy's Interior Deco, to turn scrap tires into furniture. She says it is her way of dealing with the environmental pollution through the burning of scrap car tires. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Ghanaian social entrepreneur Imelda Adjei is here to collect scrap car tires. She's in the business of recycling. There are over 2 million scrap tires in Ghana, and vulcanizers say they end up burning many of them to retrieve the tiny amount of steel they contain.
The scrap car tires keep piling up, so we burn it, but that's not the best way to handle it because it pollutes the environment.
Adjei uses the tires to build furniture. She's just secured a contract to provide centerpieces for this pub in Accra. It's her biggest contract since she started her business last year, called Think Emmy's Interior Decor. Imelda Adjei believes her innovation can help meet the UN Sustainable Development Goal of sustainable cities and communities by 2030. She's looking to expand the business of recycling car tires across Ghana.
When you recycle, one, you're helping to take away these tires of the streets, out of the gutters and all that. And two, you're preventing air pollution because then people are not going to be burning car tires anymore. And at the end of the day, yes, you're promoting artwork.
A centerpiece like this costs $50. And it takes 4 hours to make.
I want people to see it and ask who did it. Then I'll say, this person did it. It's a form of advertising for young entrepreneurs. So for me, that's why I try to do stuff like this to help the environment and also help the people who do it.
Ajay is still researching on other innovative ways of recycling car tires and plastic waste. She says since Ghana has yet to ban plastics, the best alternative is recycling in order to protect the environment. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Now, we all know using mobile phones while driving can be dangerous. To address that, the Australian government is testing a camera system that can detect drivers who use their mobile phones while behind the wheel. The new system, which uses artificial intelligence, is already proving to be a valuable tool, as CGTN's Greg Navarro now explains.
Most law enforcement officers will tell you that there are enough distractions on the roads we face each day without consciously adding to them. Yet from the unique view of a series of high-tech cameras perched above 2 Sydney roads, it seems some people just don't get it.
The best drivers in the world can't text and drive. The best drivers in the world can't check their Facebook and drive. It's just not possible.
That fact hasn't stopped some people from trying. This driver thought using 2 phones was a smart idea. That's why mobile phone detection cameras were installed late last year in a pilot program trialed on Sydney roads. The system uses artificial intelligence and works at speeds of up to 300 kilometers an hour, day or night. It's now catching more than 1,000 people each day.
In fact, you know what? We're surprised it isn't even higher. This is an occurrence that you see right across the road network here in Australia.
It's estimated that 1 out of every 10 deadly crashes on Australian roads is linked to drivers using their mobile phones. Let's say you're driving at about 60 kilometers an hour and you make the decision to glance down at your phone, which statistically lasts for about 2 seconds. During that time, you will have traveled 33 meters. That's the distance the camera has covered while I've been talking, and then some. The problem is, you'll have done it blind, meaning you didn't see a thing that was in front of you, and you've just doubled your risk of being involved in a serious crash. Despite those numbers and graphic ad campaigns, the problem isn't going away.
Unfortunately, road trauma touches everybody in the community.
It's a fact that Alexander Janik is well aware of. In 2013, his friend, 29-year-old James Rapley, was killed by a distracted driver. That prompted Janik to create a company called AccuSensus. It aims to reduce distracted driving and created the technology used by these cameras.
Our solution is designed to catch those drivers who are using the phone in the most dangerous scenario, so where they're driving and at high speeds.
Janik says his system is receiving interest from several countries also trying to combat distracted driving. For now, drivers caught on their phones receive a letter. If the technology is adopted by New South Wales, offenders could face hundreds of dollars in fines and a loss of points on their driver's licenses. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Melbourne.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. South Africa's Kirstenbosch Botanical Garden relaunches a revamped gift shop.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The world-famous Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden that is in South Africa's Cape Town prides itself on being one of the most beautiful gardens on the African continent. It is also considered as one of the great gardens of the world. Now, the curator and conservationists who run the garden say it also has one of the most beautiful gift shops in the world. As CGTN's Renee Delcam reports, the gift shop has just been revamped and relaunched.
Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden, situated on the eastern slopes of Cape Town's Table Mountain, was established in 1913 to conserve and promote the indigenous floral heritage of southern Africa. It attracts around 1 million visitors a year, most of whom stop by the popular, newly revamped Kirstenbosch gift shop.
We often have compliments from our customers to say they've never seen anything quite like this shop anywhere else in the world. We have stores at Cape Point, we have stores at Robben Island, we have stores at the waterfront to Ocean's Aquarium. And we want to be able to offer the visitors something unique from every single destination.
We were kind of challenged by the Kirstenbosch's latest edition, which was the Boomslang, which is this very magnificent walking bridge which takes you into the canopy of the kind of forest canopy of the big trees. So we poked a little bit of the store out into the garden and then brought a little bit of the garden into the store. So that's kind of what drove it. And then we kind of wanted to inhabit this very big space with what you might have in your garden, sheds, garden sheds. And there's a tree house for the kids.
The aim is for tourists and visitors to purchase products which are unique to the Kirstenbosch Botanical Garden. A wide variety of products depicting the much-loved protea, the strelitzia, indigenous fynbos, or other floral-inspired themes.
We've got beautiful botanical-inspired clothing, very easy to wear, what we call leisure wear type of clothing. We've got destination clothing and t-shirts. We've got lovely soft homewares from tea towels to cushion covers with beautiful motifs of the garden. And then we have lovely hand-painted ceramics from guinea fowls to the birds and jewelry. We've really got an endless selection.
And anyone who shops here will definitely be able to take a little piece of South Africa and Africa back home with them.
So they've done the walk in the gardens, they've experienced the gardens, and at the end of their visit to Kirstenbosch, they come into the shop. They must see what they've experienced, and they must be able to buy something that is a memory.
Renee Dalcom, CGTN, Kirstenbosch Gardens, near Cape Town, South Africa.
And let's go to Cote d'Ivoire now, where Ncho Yao, a young digital intelligence expert, has been fighting for computer security and hacking for more than a decade in his country and the West African sub-region. Take a look.
Ncho Yao is a renowned counter-piracy expert in Cote d'Ivoire. In 2008, Yao created a training center in cybersecurity called Cyberlearning 225. The center specializes in elite training to enable trainees to intervene on cybercrime and cybersecurity issues. In 2014, Cyberlearning 225 became Ncho Yao Security for Africa, or NYS Africa. The rebranding came with an even broader vision of IT security for bridging the standardization gap in the sub-region and the rest of the world.
We chose the rarest sectors: IT development, cloud, computer security, cybercrime investigation, hacking, and counter-piracy, computer forensics investigations. These sectors are very promising sectors. We decided to be the leaders, and I think we succeeded.
Yao is also known for his many TV shows and his famous books on hacking. NYS Africa delivers international diplomas and certificates to its students and professionals from different African countries.
Here at NYS Africa, we do the same training as US students, and we also have the same certification. This will allow us to develop our country by creating applications that meet international standards.
An experienced team works with Yao on training African experts in counter-piracy, useful to banks, financial institutions, governments, police, and companies that have data to protect.
We are working as a good team here, as a good team, collaborating team, dynamic team, and we work with the student and everything is going finely. And as every university, there is a student that need to be boosted up more.
We have special programs that allow some students to get the training and pay for it when they find a job. That's why we have programs that guarantee employment. Today, thousands of students have been trained not only in Cote d'Ivoire, but also in the sub-region. When we go to other countries, we find that with regard to security and advanced technologies, and especially the relatively rare technologies, there are always people who have been either trained by us or impacted by us, and it makes us very happy.
Yao holds engineering degrees in telecommunications, computer security, and advanced technology from Ghana and India. He is the promoter of the first event to demystify computer hacking in French-speaking sub-Saharan Africa called Insecurity Days. He's also the current president of ISRA CI, the Cote d'Ivoire section of the Information Security Research Association. Susan Mongeli, CGTN.
A new study on the endangered African penguin shows that hunting behavior and the condition of their chicks is linked to the abundance of fish. Researchers in South Africa spent 3 weeks observing penguins near commercial fishing activities around Robben Island. The study focused on the relationship between marine predators and their prey. The new data can now be used for better fishery management, especially those located at near-risk species. CGTN's Travers Andrews has this report.
African penguins are a highly endangered species that often take long and perilous journeys to hunt for fish and feed their young. It's especially tough when there's no fish around. But the Robben Island penguin colony has shown that when there's an abundance of fish nearby, they don't have to swim further, work harder and dive more often, resulting in a healthier population of adults and chicks.
Directly compare the behavior of the birds to the fish availability without influencing factors like fisheries. Usually we always have the problem that there might be fish around, but then if there's fishery, we don't know how much the fisheries are taking out and how much the birds are actually getting.
Fish surveys are usually expensive and can only be conducted once or twice a year, but the researchers were able to deploy birds and monitor them on a daily basis, especially their health. Sankop Station, the penguin ranger on the island, who monitors the foraging behaviors of the animals every day, and the data is proving critical for the study.
So he will conduct census counts with the government, he'll assist with that. He will assist researchers with the work that they have to do. And if he's not busy with those tasks, he will literally spend his time walking the island and making sure that the chicks are in good condition, so we have a criteria.
The abundance of prey such as sardines and pilchards were used as an indicator species in the study, which is also a valuable commercial fishery. The next study will be conducted along the False Bay coastline with the Cape's other colony of penguins.
So these birds, has been a study in the early 2000s looking at where the penguins were foraging at that time. And that time the study showed that they all stayed within False Bay. So now we want to see almost 20 years later if things have changed, if the birds actually now still find enough food in False Bay, whether they have to leave the bay to find fish.
But our researchers say this proves once again just how important penguins are as an indicator species and the way their health informs the health of their habitat. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
And your sports news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. South Africa names a team to the 2019 Netball World Cup in Liverpool.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born.